Sorry, I just realized that there's no sound on the video, and unfortunately, I cannot fix it on time. So, welcome everyone to the first ALTERSEA video conference. This panel 3B Identity, Culture, and Heritage. So, my name is Bom Latapon from C Junction. This conference is held in partnership with many institutions. For this panel, it is hosted by C Junction and co-hosted by ALTERSEA. So C Junction is a public venue and knowledge center focusing on every dimension of Southeast Asia based in Bangkok, Thailand. So before we start the panel, there are some certain rules for those joining here via Zoom. So for easy identification and smooth entry into the session, please indicate the full name for the profile. And to facilitate the meeting, I, which is the host, will ask non-presenter to mute your sound, your microphone. And for Q&A session, please use the chat box to raise a question or give a comment by mentioning your name and to whom you would like to address the question or comment, and follow with your question, comment, and opinion. So for this panel 3B Identity, Culture, and Heritage, the chairperson for this panel is Dr. Jamie Davidson. He received his PhD in political science from University of Washington and is currently associate professor of political science at the National University of Singapore. So now I would like to pass the floor to you, Jamie, please.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the conference for giving me this opportunity to chair this panel, this very interesting panel. As you'll see shortly, you'll see 3 quite fascinating videos on some really novel and innovative research. All of the presentations for this panel are on Indonesia, which is understandable given its large size, population, and significance. We have 3 presenters today. We first have Eduardo Erlanga Drestanta. Eduardo, you want to? Yep. And I'm sorry, I don't know. Are you a PhD student? I know you're attached to Paris Sorbonne, so you're getting a PhD there. Yeah. Okay. And then second, we'll have Eka Ningtyas, and she is attached to INALCO Paris. Is that also for your PhD? Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Great. And third, but not least, I saw his name earlier, but I don't see him on my screen currently, Hamza Fansuri, who is currently at Heidelberg University in Germany. There he is, Hamza. Okay, great. Alrighty, so I will make some comments on the presentations, but after the videos, and then we'll have some Q&A from the audience following that, Boom, when can the participants will respond to my comments and then we go to Q&A, or how do you want to do this?
It actually depends on how you prefer. Do you want
Okay.
to have it at the end altogether?
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Okay, so why don't we, unless anybody has something they really want to say currently, why don't we start with the video presentations,
Okay.
the research presentations? Thank you.
So, Bob, we have problems with the sound. I don't know if you
Dolly?
noticed that.
So is it no sound here on the presentation that you hear?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I don't know why, actually. So when I play the video, you hear no sound at all. So maybe Jamie, can you instead share the presentation? Oh, no, not Jamie, I mean Gabriel. Okay, bear with us for the technical problem. Hold on, I realized that it's mute.
Okay, Bom, can you stop the share screen, and then I can start to share my screen then.
And why Molucca Seram, and who is
I think now Gabriel is sharing his screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
on first? The conflict and evolution of village
Maybe
politics.
Gabriel, you can start at first because previously you
Short,
mailed.
survive long short story of the Masihula.
I don't know.
Finally, of
You can
course,
hear me
I will
or?
highlight the reflection.
Yes, now we can hear you, but maybe can you start from the beginning because previously you were mute.
In the east.
Can you see it full screen?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, because my computer is so.
Mine too.
It's terrible.
Okay, go on, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I will introduce myself. My name is Edo. I'm a PhD candidate ethnogeography student from Paris Sorbonne University. And today it is panel 3B, Identity, Culture, and Heritage. In this presentation, I will discuss and take all of you on a journey to the east of Indonesia, within a title, Customary Village,
Je croyais que
or in
c'était toi qui
Indonesia,
faisais
Desa Adat,
le backup.
and interethnic
Bukan kamu yang
conflict in
backup
Seram
buat
Island,
3
Moluccas, or Maluku. This paper is based on ethnography methodology.
Iya, karena
but
tadi
this is
kirain
a
kamu
small
yang backup
proportion
tapi
of
nggak
my ongoing
ada
PhD research
orang.
study,
Je sais pas.
with the aim to capture and to understand the
Sekarang
process
aku yang
and
backup nggak
impact
apa-apa
of
kan?
the implementation of Desa Adat Law 2014
Tu
from
m'entends?
the case study of the Masihulan
Halo.
from Sawai village. First of all, I will show you the overview of this presentation. I will tell you about the context where I choose this topic, the Pemekaran Desa Adat, and why Moluccas Seram, and who is Masihulan. And then I will go straight ahead into the 3 points more deeply on. First, the conflict and evolution. I chose to study in Moluccas. And we know until today, East Indonesia is still in the red zone. Lots of fragile conflict, ethnic, religion, or even separatist group that still exist, like in this photo, even though the implementation of politics regional autonomy has entered already 20 years today. Of course, in this case, I will focus in the administrative expansion or pemekaran on the village level with the customary village law 2014, Pemekaran Desa Adat. This law presents the possibility of one, a return to a customary government structure of the village, we call it Adat, and in this case of Moluccas, they return become the Negeri Adat. And secondly, a large influx of money, around 1 billion from central government directly into the village without going through the upper level. And there's a two type of Pemekaran in Moluccas. First is Negeri Adat, normally only for the local people or indigenous. And the second is Desa Administrative, normally for the transmigration of like Javanese, Balinese, or the Buton. But with the escalation of the conflict happening in Seram, finally there is a third additional option for the government local, which is the Negeri Adat Administrative. So like the Masihulan, they get the Negeri Adat status, but the system just only like the Desa Administrative. So they succeed to split their village from Sawai. They get their money direct from the government central, but they cannot claim their territory traditional from Sawai. And why in Seram? Because Seram is the largest island in the province Moluccas. It presents a landscape of National Park Manusela in the middle of the island. So Seram is like the island with melting pot fragile of conflict, especially for the resource natural. And so who is the Masihulan? Basically, the characteristic of the population in Seram Island is distinct by the religion and also by the two sections of geographic, the mountain population and the coastal population. And Masihulan represent a minority group. They were before the headhunter like in the photo, and just a very small population, people like around 400 people in 2016, which is included in the mountain population of Seram. This is the photo of the settlement, defining itself as the Alifuru. So Alifuru is a term registered at the time of the Portuguese Maritime Empire to refer to all non-Muslim or Christian people, or savage. Also, that's why until today they normally term by the other people like primitive, backward, or stupid. And with this phenomenon of the Sada 2014, they have the opportunity to split into a new village from their previous village Sawai. Like in this photo, this is the settlement of Sawai. The coastal mixed population, very big population, around 4,000 people. And let's begin the conflict. So I made 4 points, issues important in this slide. The first one, the fragmentation internal of the indigenous people. So this is about the conflict identity claim. Who is the real authentic people in Seram Island? Is it Alifuru the mountains people, or the coastal people. So this is the map that I made to illustrate or reconstruction about the conflict between Sawai and Masihulan and the other hamlets, and of course the territorial traditional. So before the implementation of customary village 2016, Sawai was a village principal and had 5 hamlets, or initially we call it dusun. So this is Olong. Olong is the expansion of territorial Sawai population that's already overcrowded. And this is Rumah Olat and Masihulan. They were 2 the representatives of the mountains population, or we call it Alipuru also. And then Besi and Opit is the same characteristic, the coastal population like Sawai. And what is interesting in this case, after the implementation Seram Island, and as first split into the new village from Sawai, but only one hamlet, Rumah Olat, failed to split from Sawai. So Rumah Olat very jealous and chaotic. Like in this photo I took during my research in 2016. Rumah Olat began to attack Masihulan village, put all the booby traps surrounded and inside the village Masihulan, that made all the women and children left the village and hiding into their forest around 3 days. And we continue to the second issues of elite capture. So this expansion of customary village that I found in this field under the name of Adat, in fact, it's just a negotiation of a tool for the game of elite Adat and government local that want to make the new regions of Seram Utara Raya. So Sawai given with the promise by elite local government to change the status village to be a district. And to get the status of district, Sawai needs requirement a minimum for village. So under this reason, finally Sawai had to give the extension to their hamlet in order to get the district status or kecamatan. So that's why Masihulan finally can split also from Sawai village. But on the other hand, Masihulan also used for backup from the connection for local government representative in PDI party in exchange promised to elect a president 2014 from PDI. Next, we continue to the third issue, the village funding and election of the king. So based on my research, village funding or the money became the first passion or the first reason Masihulan to split from Sawai. But it's normal for the group of minority because they never get money before or always got very small sharing under the village of Sawai. Normally, all the funding from government, local or center, or even the company and NGO project development always go to the hand of the Sawai first. For example, there's a company of the stream that always the money goes to the village of Sawai. Or another example, there is a railroad construction company in this location. We call it the SS. And before 2016, it was Sawai who received the financial incomes paid by this company. And after Masihulan became village 2016, finally they have the power to negotiate with the Sawai and the money goes officially to Masihulan. But this village funding also have a side effect. Normally, who's going to control the money? Of course, the king or the leader of the village. So it's began the new problem, the conflict internal in the Masihulan village. They start to conflict and debate each other to choose which clan that can be a king. Same as in Sawai village. They don't have a king, which ruled by the temporary or functionary official until today. Now let's move on to issues number 4 about the traditional territory. This issue is very complex. However, the implementation of Negeri Adat in Seram has not been discussed about the establishment of traditional territory because the elite game of the regency head of the Kepala Kabupaten who doesn't want to rectify it and usually used as a political tools for the agenda of the next election. So this is quite funny, and at the same time, this is really sad. However, there's already a conflict in the downer level, such as Masihulan, who is at the moment preparing themselves to strike back Sawai for their traditional territory. So if you look at the map, Sawai can have this dark brown color territory around 27,000 hectares because of the combination of the 5 hamlet traditional territories, including Masihulan. And this is the Masihulan territory with the green line around 11,000 hectares. The Sawai claim could have occurred during the 7th century Dutch colonization era, where the Dutch established a Regenschappen in the interest of the spice trade monopoly activity. Just like in this document, you can see how the Dutch group the population of Seram, where Sawai is made as the principal village that lists 5 groups. You can also see how they separate themselves because the Dutch group each village according to the religion, which are Christian, Mohammedan, and Alfuran or Alifuru. And this document is used by Masihulan for separate themselves from Sawai. Masihulan claimed they were as a group as an Alifuru by the Dutch. And when Sawai became the village principal by the Dutch, Sawai claimed all the territory and made the system of Pertuanan Territorial. So Sawai became the father and the other hamlets become the children or Anyala. And so this concept of hybrid between them and Dutch is known as the Negeri, or in this case is Negeri Adat. So this is the Pertuanan system, the Negeri Sawai. So it's the social structure based on the clan, like the Matoke, Lesi Ain, Latorohi, where each clan makes a group called Soa. This is Soa or Mataruma. Each Soa has its own function, and Soa is also a legitimation of a clan that can be the king. So this is the father, the Sawai, and this is the son, and this is Masihulan. So Masihulan become the son of Sawai. And in the left, this is the Baileo or the big house, and we call it in Sawai Luma Salaula, the place for important activities or ritual all the clan in the village, and which is the requirement to get the status of the negeri. So each negeri must have the Baileo. Then Indonesia is independent and adopt this system, but the most change that we can see is during the new order where the law of Desa number 5, 1979 was established by Suharto. Because of this, the whole structure of Maluku changed and become a structure like the Javanese structure where many values are removed. For example, so the king changed to the head of village like Kepala Desa, and then all the captain and the shaman gone changed to the secretary, and the other Soa or anything about the clan changed to the coordinator administrative or the coordinator of the program, and then the society. Here you can see in more detail how Masihulan has to go through many humiliations by moving 3 times in order to survive. First, they had to move to Popotun because they lose from the Dutch, so they were moved near the coast to ease the control of spice trade monopoly by the Dutch. Secondly, when they were accused to join the group RMS or Republik Maluku Selatan, because the military post of RMS was close to the jungle of Masihulan, so they were forced to move near Rohune or near Sawai, where Sawai was used as the military post of Indonesia, so they are considered pro-Indonesia. At Rohune, they decided to convert to Christianity because they were always perceived as a primitive and or stupid. Even though that year, we can consider it also the year of the outbreak of the Communist Revolution in 65. Here, they abandoned their Baileo and changed into the church, which has become a problem today because the requirement to have the status of Negeri Adat is to have the Baileo. Lastly is the conflict civil of Ambon in 1999, where they were forced to move to Mapa, where they live today because they are scared to be attacked by Sawai, which is the Muslim village. So, Masihulan finally changed their identity name to Paisipulane, which means the Sisir Bulan or the calm of the moon, because Masihulan was the fake name given by the Dutch and Sawai when they lose from war with the Dutch and forced to take him down. Masihulan means the loser people. You can see in this picture the new Masihulan or Paisipulane. They will live together permanently, and were finally with the village funding, they can buy the genset direct to build the electricity on the first time, and they can also make the permanent roads with a big church to show their identity to Sawai, and most importantly, they made a statue of Paisipulane in the middle of their village, and beside this is the banner, you can see the role of the politic as well that I already mentioned before, and they also get access direct to the vaccine or the puskesmas direct to their village. And finally, we come for the reflection. So in the slide, I highlight the 3 points. The first one, we found a new series of conflict and the fragmentation within the groups of indigenous people. So who is the real original and authentic people in Seram Island? Second, the pemekaran upon the name of Adat, but in fact, more likely towards the politic election of the king and money, even elite capture, and no discussion with regards to the traditional territory. The last one, terms of Adat is very confusing. It's like tools backward using primitive ways and before or after the Dutch. To conclude, I will be arguing how customary Adat village, in this case in Seram Island, is increasing conflicts and tension instead of reducing them. So thank you, Tabea, terima kasih, dan sampai jumpa.
Thank you so much. We will play the next video right now because I'm afraid of technical problems again. So let's see.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Eka Nintias. I am a PhD student in INALCO Paris. So today I would like to share with you my preliminary founding in my chapter in my dissertation about Javanism. About the first Kebatinan Congress of 1955 Semarang as one of the most important event in the history of belief in Indonesia. Why is it important? Because at this Congress, for the very first time in Indonesia history, after independence, more than 600 people gathered together to discuss the history of Indonesian mysticism movement or gerakan kebatinan, and trying to define the notion of the kebatinan, harmonize it with the principle contained in Pancasila or 5 principles of the Indonesian nation. So I will start this presentation by discussing the literature review to find the gap between my research and the research that had been already done. And then I will discuss a little bit about religion and belief, and then the first Kebatinan Congress in Indonesia and the debate among the leader. And I will close it with the conclusion. Without further ado, I will start with the literature review in the point of view of religious politics. We have the work of Samsul Ma'arif, Martin Ramstad, Michel Picard, and Remy Madinier. And about the constitutional recognition of belief, we have the work of Simon Batz, and related to the history of Islamization in Jawa, we have the work of M. Seri Clef entitled Islamization and its Opponent in Jawa, especially when he mentioned about the totalitarian experiments of aliran politik in 1966 until 1980s. And from the point of view of ethnograph, we have the work of Robert Hefner about Hindu-Javanese Tengger tradition and Islam, and also we have Anju Bici about variety of Javanese religion, Niels Mulder about mysticism in Jawa, and also Paul Stench about the Sumarah movement in 1980. And also from the point of view of theologian cum scholar, we have the work of Harun Hadi Wiono, Rahmadi Subagja, and then we have also the work of Simon Rahmadi and Harjaka Harjamarjaja. And from the point of view of Muslim theologian cum scholar, we have Hamka about perkembangan kebatinan di Indonesia, and Rashidi about the Islam and kebatinan. So the word of kebatinan or science of the mind is a term used, especially before it was replaced by the another term, kepercayaan or belief in 1970s, to identify a religious movement that had shown massively growth in the first and the second decades after independence. Religions play a vital role in Indonesia. Every citizen must be affiliated with one of the 5 recognized religions at the time: Islam, Protestantism, Roman Catholicism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Anyone who was not affiliated with at least one of this religion was marked as not yet having a religion or belum beragama. In contrast, the kebatinan movement that developed rapidly in the 1960s, 50s were associated with backwardness and the atheism. Woodward argues that the official criteria for religion in Indonesia implicitly use the values that exist in the divine religion or agama samawi. These criteria include belief in oneness God or monotheism, having a scripture or kitab suci, and having a prophet or nabi. However, creative interpretation is needed to include Hinduism and Buddhism. However, this definition had succeeded in discrediting a myriad of local religion, including the kebatinan, since 1950s. So I will continue my presentation in the first kebatinan movement. At 8 o'clock in the morning on
Okay, sorry for the problem. Is it a problem from Zoom or from my computer? Let's wait some seconds. Sorry for the inconvenience. Do you think it's a problem with the Zoom connection, or it should be my my computer?
Maybe it's on your end, maybe.
Okay.
20 August 1955, 680 people wait with great enthusiasm in front of Asoka Building in Jalan di Biau Chan number 4 Kampung Kali, now Jalan Panjaitan, Semarang. They were attending the first Indonesian Kebatinan Congress after having gone through a long debate among their decision makers. That day, Saturday, which coincided with the first surah of 1887, Javanese calendar of Java, was chosen as the day of the Congress. This fact shows that Javanism was the breath of the initial stage of Indonesian mystical movement. The Asoka Building itself is a building philosophy Semarang since the late 19th century. Semarang itself is one of the few towns in Central Java to have a connection with the Theosophical movement since the colonial period. As we can see, in the main entrance of the building, we can see the banner Badan Kongres Kebatinan Indonesia Jang ke-1, print by the committee in a rather large size. It was meant to make it easier to the participants to identify Asoka Building from afar, knowing that they were not all from Semarang. A dormitory was prepared by the committee in the village of Bululor, about 4 kilometers northwest the Kampung Kali, around here. Mall Paragon Semarang. In the hall of the Asoka Building was full of the guests from all over Java. There were only one representative from Taman Siswa Palembang, who was the only guest from outside Java. Taman Siswa itself is an educational institution founded by Ki Hajar Dewantoro by applying the concept of among in his teaching practice. Among itself comes from the Javanese word momong, which means parenthood. Thus, the relationship between the teacher and the student is like the parents taking care of their biological child. This is similar to the relationship between guru and their spiritual adherent in the Javanese mystical movement. And then the sound of microphone of Ramo Wisit, this man, a member of Semarang Theosophy, who led the Congress, marked the beginning of the program exactly at 10 o'clock in the morning. Ramo Wisit then invited 5 religious faith representative to lead the opening prayer. Tin Bing Oi represented Confucianism, Hadi Kusumo represented Theosophy, Asrar Prawiro Disuryo of Islam, Mangun Kawoco of Buddha, and Judo Sutarjo of Christianity took turn reciting prayers before all Congress participants. In the implementation of the first Congress, creation of the mystical movement in Indonesia received great moral and spiritual support from Indonesian Theosophy. This can be proved by the use of Theosophical Building as the first implementation of the Congress, and also by the 3 preparatory meetings in 1955. In addition, national personality who were involved in the development of idea of nationality
Eka, if you remember your text, maybe we'll have to finish orally. Just kidding, but maybe we can share the screen of someone else.
Let me try feature. I can open my sound this time, Gabriel.
Yes. Thank you.
Can you stop sharing first, and then I'll try.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, I think got it. values.
Of nationality
That's
and
how it
who were
works, right?
also member of Theosophy also played a role in the formulation of the first Kebatinan Congress. One of them was Wongsonegoro or Sunardi, who was a deputy prime minister of Indonesia in Ali Sosro Amijoyo first cabinet from 1953 to 1955, and also served as Indonesian Minister of Education and Culture from 1951 to 1952, replacing Bahadur Johan. Wongsonegoro in 1950, together with Dr. Rajiman Wiro Sanjoyo and Kadarman, agreed to establish Trikoro Darmo. Trikoro Darmo was one of the youth organization aimed to achieve Javanese nationalism that rebaptized as the Jong Java. And then Sugeng Kusumawardoyo is in one of his article published in the Book of Commemoration Ceremonies of First and Second Kebatinan Congresses, stated that the implementation of Indonesian Congress in 1955 had seen its shadow since 1933. He said that in Semarang there was an art center called Eka Kapti in village of Perdikan Utara, which until 1955 was still active. Eko Kapti not only had a library or taman bacaan, Javanese cultural activities, especially Javanese dance, but also at the time it also had a branch of Kebatinan called Suramarten. Its followers were called Warga, and most of them were also the senior member or Pinisipo of Eka Kapti. Sugeng also mentioned several names of Suramurten members, including Kodiat Marto Darsono, Kiwiryo Prawito, Sudarsono, Karto Sumarmo, and Sugeng Kusumawardoyo himself. Ki Wiryo Prawoto, mentioned by Sugeng Kusumawardoyo above, is known to be active in Javanese cultural organization called Sobokarti in Semarang since 1920s. Sobokarti is a Javanese cultural organization called Orkunskring that was founded on the initiative of two parties in 1916, namely Thomas Karsten and Sam Kopperberg of the Semarang Kunskring on the one hand, and Mangkunegoro VII, Rajiman Wadioningrat, and Raden Ngarso Sosro Hadikusumo in the other hand. Wiryo Prawoto's name appeared in the Jawa magazine, this one, of 1924, which is linked to the regular meeting of Sobokarti in May 1922, especially with regard to his appointment as a director of Sobokarti. This fact is very important because it shows that the implementation of the first Kebatinan Congress, in addition to receive support from theosophical groups, it was also supported by the senior who were involved in the activities of Javanese cultural organization from the beginning of 20th century. The initial phase of the mystical movement in Indonesia became tangible form where Javanism was used as the basis for its religious and cultural values. So I came to the conclusion. Through this first Indonesian Kebatinan Congress, I can conclude that Javanism became the main supporting factor in the formulation of a Kebatinan organization, which later turned into belief in the 1970s. Furthermore, support from the theosophic groups and the figures from the Javanese national movement who have been involved in various Javanese cultural activities since the Dutch colonial period become the midwife who helped give birth to the to the baby of Indonesian Kebatinan movement in 1950s. Considering that this research is still in ongoing process, it is necessary to develop it, especially to explore further the debate that arose in the second, third, and the other national belief congresses in the 1960s until 1978. To see more deeply about how was the position of Javanism in the discourse of religious politics in Indonesia until 1970s. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you can give me your feedback or maybe a question. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
For the next presentation,
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to present my presentation entitled Hijrah Community Among Indonesian Celebrities, Contesting Idea Through Urban Mobility. This article analyzes the struggle of the Hijrah community for their identity and in the context of increasingly plural urban public spaces. Although several studies has attempted to examine this group of Hijrah, most have focused on new media, and only few have revealed their daily mobilities in urban life. By using the new paradigm of mobility popularized by Uri, in which there are five interrelated dimensions, namely physical travel, physical movement, imaginative travel, virtual travel, and communicative travel, as well as obtaining data through extensive literature study. This study shows that the identity of urban Muslim from the Kajian Musyawarah as one of the influential Hijrah community based in Jakarta, and a new socio-religious movement are formed within the framework of what Manuel Castells so-called legitimizing identity through urban mobility, in which they contest many social dimensions. Okay, to begin with, in 2018, to be exact, on 9th to 11th November, there was a religious festival on a large scale carrying the title Hijrah Fest 2018. The event, which was initiated by the group of capital celebrities who call themselves the Hijrah community, took place at the Jakarta Convention Center. Every day, the organizers provide 5,000 entrance tickets with a price of 80,000 rupiah for each ticket. The festival, which also presents well-known features on social media such as Abdullah Gymnasiar, Abdul Somad, Adi Hidayat, Hanan Ataki, Felix Xiao, and others, not only consume ticket sales every day, however, it has proven to be a new magnet for the urban millennial generations who dominate these 3 consecutive days of events. Not a few of them came from the buffer cities of Jakarta such as Bekasi, Bogor, Tangerang, and Depok. The reporter for Hidayatullah.com, Khalis Akbar, for instance, enthusiastically mentioned the high enthusiasm of young people attending the 2018 Hijrah Fest as a sign of the failure of the spirit of liberalism among young people, especially in Indonesia. The Hijrah phenomena is inherent in the counter ideas of what they understand as liberalism, coupled with the image of urban life filled with immorality. Hijrah is understood as an effort of ethical Puritanism. Thus, they believe that getting closer to religious teachings, becoming more pious, and gathering Muslim in a Muslim brotherhood are the best way to abandon mundane ideas. Apart from, of course, contesting Islamic identity amidst a pluralist urban life. At least in the last 2 decades, various activities with the theme of Hijrah have often taken place in public spaces, including house-to-house recitation or pengajian, especially in social media, which is managed seriously. When viewed from the perspective of Islamic history, etymologically, hijrah here is different from the original definition, which means the migrations of the Prophet Muhammad and his followers from Mecca to Medina in 622. And in this paper, hijrah contains the same symbolic meaning to mobility. However, there was a re-understanding of historical events in Islamic civilizations that became more toward efforts to be more pious, to get closer to religion and God with the principles of holding Islamic law. Apart from that, of course, the Hijrah movement in Indonesian society was also encouraged by the birth of a new urban Muslim group that had socio-historical differences from traditional Muslim communities in rural areas. Although there are other factors such as the expansion of various transnational Islamism movements originating from other countries, including Salafism, Wahhabism, Tablighi Jamaat, Jamiatul Al-Ikhwan Al-Muslimin or Muslim Brotherhood, and Hizbut Tahrir. Another thing is the return of Indonesian students who studied in the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia, who generally belong to Salafism. Besides, this is because Islamic movements were pressured for a long time by a repressive New Order regime and were unable to articulate their idea and resistant to the public sphere. According to Kuntawijoyo, this generation is part of the urban phenomenon that was born from the Islamic middle class in big cities. Therefore, their religious socialization is no longer through Islamic institutions such as madrasas or Islamic boarding schools, but public schools, peer groups, or anonymous sources such as books, internet, tapes, and videos, which have recently been increasingly active through social media as well as WhatsApps. In the capital city, a group of public figures, mostly celebrities, have gathered in a community which they call the Kajian Musyawarah. As the name implies, this community ties together in urban recitation forums with the terminology Musyawarah, which is an acronym for Muda, Sakinah, Mawadah, and Warahmah. This literally means young generation who are calm, peaceful, full of love and hope and compassion. Initially, this community often held an exclusive recitation or pengajian for themselves, but then scheduled recitation which was open to the public in response to the public interest who want to listen to the sermon of the famous preachers. This community also later became the main actor in organizing the Hijrah Fest annually. Together with Hijrah community networks in other big cities such as Bandung Seru Pemuda Hijrah, Yogyakarta, and Surabaya. Kajian Musyawarah immediately became the new magnet for urban Muslim communities who were not only able to maximize social media networks through Instagram, YouTube, and other social media platforms, but it also fills public spaces both physically and digitally in various socio-religious activities, as well as roadshow, pengajian, social services, and so on. As a representation of the urban Muslim middle class phenomena in Indonesia, where many scholars have carried out their study in various approaches, we can see how the Muslim middle class play a significant role, especially after the fall of the new order. In political contestation, for instance, in the 5 year succession at the gubernatorial election to the presidential election cannot be separated from how the interests of the political elites and oligarchs seek to gain sympathy and support from the society or this community, which demographically increase in number, especially if the candidates competing in the election play opposing tension, so it can become a political community as voting power. The sentiment of identity politics, which in this case Islamic identity, is proven to be quite effective in influencing the political constellation, which then also influence the daily socio-cultural life of the community, even to this day. The urban Muslim still lives debates among scholars, especially how they contest in public spaces, in state life context on the one hand, and how they intersect with very social dimension, especially in pluralistic urban life on the other hand. Similarly, the contradiction that arise in their daily practices. On the one hand, they want to show personal and impersonal piety as a pretext for carrying out religious orders. On the other hand, materialistic urban life becomes an allure that traps consumptive lifestyles and behaviors. Thus, it seems to coincide tightly religious Puritanism in urban life, therefore, does not prove to be an antithesis of material culture. The encounter of this urban Muslim middle class with urban life is difficult to avoid social negotiation from both fellow Muslims and those of different religions. On a broader scale, Muslim identity is also in dilemmatic position, considering that on the one hand, it seeks to accentuate it as a representations of piety, where the fundamental elements of it are transcendental matters such as orderly worship and carry out religious law. On the other hand, however, urban lifestyle, includes shopping at shopping malls, luxurious living, including regular updating content on Instagram and YouTube, which is certainly not free, as well as schedule shift abroad to be contradictory immanent matters. Similarly, when the symbolic reproduction spaces imagined by Habermas directly and indirectly become an arena for the struggle for dominations over Muslim identities and the like, which of course holds a variety of interpretations, either certain ideological interests behind them, or there are economic interests in which it is related. Therefore, the Indonesian Muslim middle class identity is then interpreted as the imagination of the brotherhood between fellow Muslims, which is still being contested. Although symbologically it can be shown from fused religious attributes such as fashion or whatever is produced and consumed, including in terms of this is discourse. Meanwhile, in the digital space, maximizing the use of social media has also become a spectacle which is seriously managed because the accentuation of identity can more easily reach public acceptance in the forms of various contents. By targeting the urban Muslim, the activities of the Kajian Musyawarah as an activist for the hijrah community in physical and digital public spaces show that show what is known as a mobility turn, a new paradigm that sees the connection between five forms of mobility that shape and reshape various networks, namely physical travel, physical movement, imaginative travel, virtual travel, and communicative travel. John Uri, in this context, explained that physical travel means everyone's physical journey to work, relax, family life, leisure, migration, and even escape. In the Kajian Musyawarah context, as a representation of the Hijrah community, recitation or pengajian activities, and relaxing with activities in urban public spaces, especially malls and cafes, are part of daily behavior in living urban life. Meanwhile, physical movement, which refers to the physical movement of objects sent to producers, consumers, and retailers, can be, can be seen from how most celebrities of the Kajian Musyawarah, as well as other Hijrah communities, do business massively, especially Islamic clothing through advertisement on social media. Imaginative travel then means an imaginative journey to another place through memories, text, pictures, television, and films. In this part, which bears a resemblance to communicative travel, the screen culture proved to be an inherent character of the urban community exposed to most of the day. Virtual travel then often takes place in real time on the internet and thus transcends geographic and social distances, as well as communicative travel through person-to-person messages via letter, telephone, mobile phone, email, instant messaging, and video conferencing. In the midst of the current pandemic, teleconferencing using various medium of the application solve about this. This new paradigm of mobility becomes the starting point for seeing how the Kajian Musyawarah contests identity on behalf of Muslim Brotherhood, or in Arabic term called as Ukhuwah Islamiyah, along with urban mobility, which inevitably intersects various social dimensions. The discussion led to the contact with socio-religious movements that are more historical in Indonesian society, such as Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama, as the next discussion, before elaborating on the issue of identity, which is nothing but a social construction by examining building materials from history, geography, biology, geospatial factors, productive and reproductive institutions, collective memory and personal fantasy, and the apparatus of power and religious revelations. The final discussion is about urban mobility and how the Kajian Musyawarah is to live a pluralistic urban life in the sense that is intersect adherence of other religions to differences in understanding between fellow Muslims. Not only that, the urban spaces that are connected directly and indirectly also shape the consciousness and imagination of everyone, which in this case is the identity itself. Thank you.
So those are all presenters we have. Jamie, do you have any comment to make before we jump to Q&A session? Hello, Jamie. Seems like you're saying. Oh, Jamie, are you with me, or is it my connection?
I don't know.
Okay.
You froze, but I'm here now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will, please allow me just a few minutes. I don't want to take up too much of people's time because I do want to get to the Q&A to offer some comments, some constructive insights into the three presentations. I mean, you heard the presentations despite some of the technical difficulties. They're excellent PhD research programs. All the presenters really show a great grasp of their topic and of case knowledge of Indonesia. And you could tell, you know, where they're going, where they need to do some more work as well. Let me just, and I also understand that it's hard when I don't read like a full paper. Maybe some of the input that I have was covered in the paper. It's a short presentation. You can't do everything in the presentation. I fully understand that. But I need to ask these anyway, just to make sure that you know going forward that these are some important points to be addressed. I mean, I think a common theme through the three papers in terms of what I would want to see more of, maybe improvement, is a more nuanced or deeper or more thorough engagement with the broader literature, both on Indonesia and a little bit more conceptually or theoretically. It was hard in some cases to really understand like what discipline you're coming from. Okay, so let me get to the three papers. We start with Eduardo's fascinating look at adat level politics, okay, in Seram, in the Malukus. From what I gathered, this is like a paper that's kind of like an overview paper. Wants to give a survey of one's research and what the research program looks like extensively, which it can be useful, but it also then lends itself to like a kitchen sink approach where everything gets thrown in at once, and it's hard to find what is the true analytical edge or traction of the paper. What exactly is trying to be explained here? So it needs a little bit more focus. Now, some of that focus can be done through, again, a more thorough engagement of the literature on adat politics, of which is now voluminous, especially in post-Suharto Indonesia. I understand that one of Eduardo's like hooks, one of the key findings or the way in which to get people interested in the paper is that this is specifically about, you know, post 2014 and the Adat Desa law and some of the money that got attached to that. But we need more focus exactly what we're trying to look at. You know, you think about, he talked a little bit about conflict. There's been so much written on conflict, particularly at the village level in Indonesia, especially post-Suharto. We need engagement with that literature in order to show us why do we, you know, Eduardo should be thinking about like, okay, I know this case very well, but why would an Indonesianist who doesn't know much about this case be interested? What would draw the person in? And that's one level, right? The next level would be, why would a Southeast Asianist be interested in my case? How can I get someone who studies similar issues in Thailand or the Philippines to read my work? So how do I abstract a little bit more broadly to get interest in it? And you know, you can do that through better engagement with the relevant literature, but also your disciplinary literature. I have to admit, looking at this piece, I don't know exactly what discipline Eduardo is studying. Is he a political scientist, anthropologist, sociologist? It's hard to tell. So more of your discipline-based knowledge, I think, needs to be applied to the case. Okay, and I think that also pertains to the second presentation, Eka's excellent, you know, look at the 1950s, the Kebantinan Congress of 1955. Eka is an historian, so that in this case it's clear. But one of the things that a historian needs to do and should be very proud of is to ground his or her work in the sources that they're using in order to tell their narrative. And there was, you know, a mention here about some magazine or newspaper article, but we really want to know about how are you getting your information on this, especially for the 1950s, because the 1950s in Indonesia among Indonesianists are like this enigmatic decade. People always go out saying, I want to explore the 1950s, and they want to do that because they understand so much happened in that decade, and we still know too little. The problem is, every time everyone gets so excited to go out there, I'm going to study the 1950s, they realize why we know so little, because so little of the material from that period has survived, right? Particularly the archives. So what happens is you have like the Dutch scholars, they go off to Leiden or Amsterdam, and all those colonial archives are so nicely archived. But in Indonesia, especially in the 50s, with very little money and the chaos of the 50s, a lot of that material habis, right? It's gone. So we want to know more about the material, okay? We also want to know more about the 1950s. Like, I found it very striking that you're talking about a Congress in 1955. Well, what happened in Indonesia in 1955 that's so famous? The Bandung Conference, right? So it'd be great if you can, like, for example, put the Kebantinan Congress in dialogue with Bandung. People who know very little about Indonesia know about Bandung, right? But hardly probably a lot of people know about this Congress. So you can contrast it a little bit to make your piece more significant. Again, how to get other people to read this. You also need to think about the significance. Again, I don't know, like, this Congress, is this just a chapter? Or I doubt the whole dissertation is on the Congress itself, but it's hard to know exactly where it plays in your research. But you want to think through the significance of the Congress through today's Indonesia, right? So how does it help us understand what's happening in Indonesia today? I know you said the study goes up to the 1970s, but still, to get more people interested, again, the simple question is, why should I read this? Right? So how do you get people attracted to it? Now, finally, Hamza's piece, right, on Hijra and mobility and personalities and celebrities in Indonesia, in urban Indonesia. I think, again, similar, right? You need to, there was an attempt to engage some theory, but it was a little rushed, a little thin. I think you largely talked about one theorist, right? 5 points of mobility or something like that. As a PhD student, you have to give us a little bit more, or you want to tell us why these 5 points work in Indonesia or why they don't, right? What are you contributing to a body of knowledge a little bit more broader or broadly than your case? Again, the literature on politics and piety among Muslims in post-Suharto Indonesia is humongous. It's huge. I want to know how your research fits within all this kind of all this literature, and it is really, really big, right? From sociologists to religious studies to anthropologists, it's quite massive. And again, that will help to root the significance of your work and tell people, wow, okay, well, he's tackling X, Y, and Z. So, we should read this because we want to understand where these people went right and where these people went wrong. I have some other more specific questions concerning this. I mean, okay, you spent a lot of time focusing on Muslim urban middle class identities. So, Mike, I have just a couple of questions. One is, among that group, what other identities matter, right? Does gender matter among those people, or is Islam more important than their middle class status? What's more important to these people at the end of the day, right? I mean, if you literally gave them a choice, give up the Quran or give up your little house and your little car and your air conditioning, what are you going to choose, right? Which identity is what other competing identities are there? And my final question is, how do you think your findings would be vis-a-vis if you moved up and down the socioeconomic ladder? How would this contrast with, let's say, hypothetically, you did this among upper middle class or rich Indonesians? How would this, what you think would look different? And if you went down the socioeconomic ladder and it did more working class or poor Indonesians, also urban's fine, what would it look like? How would it be different, right? What would be that kind of illuminating edge? So with that, I'll end it. And maybe you could briefly answer. Don't go on too long because we do want to get to the Q&A. So let's just go in order of the presentations. Thank you.
Can we start with you?
Yeah. Can you hear me all? Yes, okay. Thank you very much for the explanation, Mr. Jamie, and thanks for the opportunity to in this panel. So yes, basically my bachelor came from the anthropology tradition in Universitas Indonesia. So, and then my master, and until today, I took the geography, and specifically ethnogeography. So like dualistic also, like the problem in Indonesia within the citizenship and the adat, the same like me right now. So my basic paper is to capture the voice. It came for the from the society, which is the indigenous, the local people. Start from the implementation of the SADA. So I want to see the process, because my big study is about to see the continuity of the democratization of the autonomy regional. So it's one of the big issue of the post-Suharto's new era. And then came to the Desa Adat, and I want to capture how the process began. So in my case that I show before, it's still a lot of the heritage or of influence, like the top from bottom, not bottom from top. And the second issues that why interesting in Masiuran and Sawai, because they already have a conflictual issue of course inside the concept of adat, because they already conscious or realize about the issues of like authoritarianism and then gender issue. So when the adat implied to Maluku and become to the negeri, because our constitutional realized that village adat in Maluku is came from the Dutch nomenclature negeri adat, and then they tried to conflictual about the concept of the king. So how the adat give us the democration, but when this implementation of this adat, our leader is very our leader is chief from the king, like that. So that's my big issue about the processing implementation of this adat 2014 2016 in Maluku. So that's the big picture of my I want to address about the conflictual and the process of this adat in Maluku. Thank you.
Okay, Eka, please.
Sama itu? Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Pak Jamie, for your very very insightful comment and also question related to the how did I get this information about Indonesian 1950s history. Yes, I agree that this period it's really interesting because I think not many scholars talk about this period in from point of view of the kebatinan movement. So that's why I came from my reflection from point of view today that our teman-teman penghayat kepercayaan or adherent of the belief face different difficult situation concerning the citizenship. They have a difficulty to access their education, their marriage, official marriage in the Department of the Religion in Indonesia. So that's why I came back to the 1950s. That I found out that in the realm of intellectual discourse at the time, the kebatinan groups experienced a golden age in this period, and it can be proved by if we take a look. There's so many, or maybe not many, but several national congresses that brought together various intelligent people at that time to discuss their idea, their notion about the belief, the concept of religion and belief at the time. But after that, especially after the ketetapan MPR, I don't know how to tell it in English. 1978, ketetapan MPR 1978, it mentioned that the kebatinan or the kepercayaan, it's different from the religion. So after that time, this kind of movement, a religious movement, Indonesian government put it in the as a culture, and we and Indonesian people must gather together to preserve it. So their intellectual discussion has been repressed at the time. So I came from this problem. So I want to show that before its repression, these kebatinan groups is really experience a golden time. So I respond to your question about the archive. In fact, in the ANRI, Archive Nasional of Republik Indonesia, we can found from the catalog cabinet, the cabinet president Republik Indonesia 1950s until 1959. I found a huge number of archive from Indonesian citizen directly to the Sukarno, and it mentioned that they were have, you know, like a dream or wangsit. I don't know in English wangsit, like a dream superstition that they believe Sukarno will deliberate Indonesian and can bring brought the Indonesian people into the prosperity, something like that. So at the time, in fact, there was huge number of archive. If we take a look at this period, and yes, I agree that maybe we can found the archive in Netherlands, in Paris, or also, but I want take a look from the point of view of my people. I mean, like I want to show that as you mentioned before, that I have to engage broader in my literature view. Yes, I agree. I try to take a look more in the perspective of indigenous people. So yeah, from this period, I already collect several, not that archive, and also debate about the kebatinan or the kepercayaan, especially in the 50s and the 60s before 1978.
Okay.
And then,
all right,
yeah.
thank you. Let's that was a lot. Let's we don't have that much time. I want Hamza to be able to respond, and then so we can have some Q&A. But thank you, Eka. Hamza, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jamie, for your comments and questions. Regarding to the identity, what exactly the identity for this community? As far as I have observed for this community, the problem of identities refers to the way they construct their identity before and after they do hijrah. That's constructing the identity is not easy when they have to face so many social dimensions in urban life. Why I want to ask about contesting the identity, because even though several studies said that this community refers to the conservative, but in my point of view, this community tried to be a good Muslim in urban life, but it is not easy for them to accentuate and to struggle this identity in plural urban society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we heard from our three presenters. So now we will open it up to the virtual floor, so to speak. And we already have our first question in from Jim. And he asks both Eka and Hamza, to what extent are these religious / movements examples of counterculture? To what extent are they repressed because of a perceived counter normativity? So Eka or Hamza, you want to try to answer that?
Okay, nggak bisa lagi. Yeah, I try to answer this very interesting question from Jim. To what extent are these religions movement example of encounter culture? Yeah, I hope I could respond respond this question because it's quite difficult for me. But if we look at if we look at it from a cultural perspective, actually this space, I mean like Indonesian in 1950s, is the pace of what I call it forming Javanese culture, which is manifested in the Javanese Kebatinan movement, which is which was as the ancestor of the belief and penghayat kepercayaan today. And then as I already mentioned before, concerning the question, the response, the question of Pak Jamie, until the 1970s, Javanism in Indonesia actually got a space in political discourse, especially because if we look the two presidents of Indonesia, Sukarno and Suharto, are the adherent of the Javanism in their political practices. However, due to the pressure from the Islamic groups in the late of 1970s, I found the statement of the MUI, Majelis Ulama Indonesia, I don't know in English, mentioned that in 1976 they refused, they demand to the Suharto at the time to refuse the kebatinan or the kepercayaan in the GBHN, garis besar haluan negara. I don't know in English, but it's really important phase, because after that, the kebatinan and also kepercayaan had to be placed in the realm of the culture and not part of the religion. And since 1978, kebatinan was officially repressed until 2016. But now after the keputusan keputusan MK number 97 2017, the adherent of the kepercayaan could enjoy their place in the citizenship Indonesian as full citizen Indonesian. Maybe
Okay.
yeah, maybe that's
Thank you.
that's
Yeah.
my
Let's give Hamza a chance to answer this.
Yeah.
Hamza, please.
Okay, thank you, Jim, for your questions. Yeah, as Eka said previously, regarding to the culture, I can say yes, because yeah, as I have explained beforehand, this community try to struggle their identity in some of social dimension in urban life, including lifestyle, for instance. So what exactly refers to the counterculture? I can say this lifestyle, for instance, is the way this community do not influenced by the everything that's come from the world. I mean the urban lifestyle. They try to counter this this culture. Yeah. About the repress, I think it's already answered by Eka.
Just to follow Hamza, Eka mentioned the Majelis Ulama Indonesia, the Ulama Council, and their earlier repression of Kebatinan. What is the a response of, big Islamic institutions, the Muslim mainstream, to the Hijra movement? Do they accept Hijra as part of the mainstream of Islam, or do they see it as something separate or perhaps a challenge to their authority?
Unfortunately, I'm not really concerned about the Kebatinan community and the response to the Hijra community. Maybe Eka can answer about this.
Sorry if I was misunderstood. It was the question about the Majelis Ulama Indonesia, the Ulama Council. How does mainstream Islam respond to Hijra?
Yeah, because this is a part of urban movement. So I'm not found about the way the MUI, Majelis Ulama, respond to this community, because it's not to be a new challenge for the Muslim community nowadays. I mean, because some of member in this community, they are also a part of member of Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama. So it is sometimes they can be a moderate Muslim, but yeah, in other occasion they are studied by some scholars and said they are conservative. But I think this is an important question about conservative or moderate, because when I have learned about this community, Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama is not really tend to position this community as a challenge, for a new challenge. Yeah.
Thank you, Hamza. Thank you, Eka.
So,
Okay, Hamza, don't go anywhere, because I think the next question is also addressed to you.
Yeah.
It says, explaining the phenomenon of several public figures, Muslim actresses taking off their jilbab. Is there any correlation to the phenomenon of the comeback of Kebatinan or dehydrazation in the time of Pak Jokowi?
yeah. Thank you, Dr. Andar. Yeah, I think it is too early to explain that phenomena of hijrah related to the kebatinan or the hijrahizations. Huntley, I have heard about this term about the hijrahization, but thank you for this correlation. I think I have to study this before, because to find out about the correlation between some actresses taking off their jilbab and the hijrahization is have some correlation. I think that's thank you.
Okay, and I think, Hamza, the next question is also addressed to you. Is the relationship of this Hijra movement to older movements like Tarbiyah and Salafi? What effect does the government crackdown on Islamism in the last few years has had on the movement itself?
Yeah, one study is published by one of famous preachers, namely Oki Setiana Dewi, in his dissertation about this community influenced by Salafism and Tarbiyah. But yeah, I can argue that what have found by the Oki dissertation is really true about the movement. This movement influenced by Tarbiyah and Salafi. But yeah, as I said, and as I have answered by the Jim questions about the way this community influenced by public urban Muslim, I mean, is not really challenging for government, especially because they they also themselves as a moderate Muslim. I mean, they are not tend to be Salavism, but also or Tarbiyah, and try to struggle for the political contestation. I mean, so because of I said in my article, they are as a new socio-religious movement, so it's not really have has a new challenge for by the government. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We are running towards the end of the scheduled time, and nor do I see any other questions in the chat. I guess we can take one final one if somebody has a short-ish question. Anybody want the last word, the last question?
Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe.
please.
Yeah, thank you. It's a short question for Hamza. If I'm not wrong, in Bandung, the Hijra movement is very strong. Maybe it's also one of the places where it emerged initially. And there, the ruling party is PKS. Is there a strong connection between Hijra groups and PKS political party? Do you have any information about the connection between Hijra groups and an eventual militant potential and a connection to PKS political party in Bandung?
Yeah, personally, I'm not agree about the opinion that sometimes talking about the Hijra community is what is it? Refers to the Islamisms or conservative, because sometimes some scholars said that Hijra phenomena or Hijra community nowadays is a part of PKA's tend to affiliate to the past. But in my point of view, this community is trying to offer and they are only offered the way to be a good Muslim, and they are not to tend to try and struggle in the political life. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. So thank you very much. I think we got some good questions, some good responses. Bohm, do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and special thanks to you, Jamie, to be your chairperson today, and thanks all presenters to join us. So I would like to sorry again for all technical problems that occur. So for this first ALTERSEA video conference, we also have the session after this. So there will be the keynote speech so at 3 p.m. in Europe time, or if in Bangkok or Jakarta would be at 8 p.m. or in Singapore would be at 9 p.m. So hope to see you, and there will also be other panels going on tomorrow and the day after. So hope to see you all again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pak Jamie, for the input and all of, and hope we can have a further discussion.
Thank you for all.
And also, if you want to rewatch this, it will be also be uploaded soon on ALTERSEA YouTube channel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.